In Chapter 3, we will discuss descriptive statistics. In this first narrated lecture, we'll review measures of location. There are a number of measures or ways that we can determine the location of a data set. We'll discuss the mean, the weighted mean, the median, the mode, percentiles, and quartiles. At this time, we will not review the geometric mean. If measures of location or descriptive statistics are taken from a sample, they are called sample statistics. If they are taken from a population, instead they are called parameters. Key through this entire course is that sample statistics are used as point estimators of a corresponding population parameter. In other words, if I take a sample and measure the mean, I will use that as an estimator or to infer something about the population mean. The mean. This is the most common, most frequently used, and perhaps the most important measure of central location, and probably the one that you're most familiar with. The mean is simply the arithmetic average of all of the data values. So to calculate the mean for a sample, the sample mean is equal to the summation. You see that capital sigma, looks like a large letter E. That is the symbol for summation of all values to the right of it. So to calculate the sample mean, which we call X bar, it will be the sum of all of the observations, the X values, divided by the number of observations. For a population mean, we use the same formula, only we will designate the number of observations with the capital letter N. A weighted mean. This is used when our data set not only includes the X values, but also some weighting or measure of importance of the X values. For example, we can use the weighted mean to calculate your grade point average. The formula for the weighted mean, again, which is designated as X bar, would be the sum of all of the weighted data values. In other words, each data point times its weighting, summed up, and divided by the sum of all of the weights. For example, if we were measuring a weighted grade point average, we could say each X value would be a value of an A equals 4, a B equals 3, a C equals 2, etc. And the weighting could be the number of credit hours which you had received each of those grades. You would sum up each grade value times the number of credit hours, and then sum up the total of the credit hours. A textbook gives a good example of this. The median is the second most useful measure of central location, and it is the value in the middle when the data is arranged in ascending order. The median is useful whenever the data has extreme values. For example, if you're looking at incomes or property value data, where a few extremely large or extremely small values will inflate or greatly reduce the mean. For an odd number of observations arranged in ascending order, the mean is simply the middle value. For an even number of observations, you would take the two middle values and you would average them. The mode is probably the least useful measure of central location. It is simply the data value that occurs with the greatest frequency. And this can occur at two or more different values. If you have two modes, the data is called bimodal. You can also have the data that has no mode, where there is no repeat of the data values. Percentiles are another way to measure the location of data within a data set. It's used quite frequently in things like test scores. If you want to know what is that test score which is at the 90th percentile, or where 90% of the data points are lower than that value. In order to calculate the percentiles, we need to calculate an index number. So first arrange the data in ascending order, and then to calculate that index number, we would take the percentile p divided by 100 times the number of data points. That will give us which of the values in that ascending order is at that percentile. If the index number is not an integer, you round it up. If the index number is an integer, then you take it and the next higher value and you average the two. Quartiles are simply specific percentiles. The first quartile is the 25th, the second is called the 50th, or better yet, the median, the middle value, and the third quartile is the 75th percentile. This is the end of our discussion of measures of location or central tendency.